With the signing of Viktor Gyokeres, Andrea Berta has addressed each one of Arsenal's problem positions in just one window. And whilst all the signings might not be stellar names, I'm here to tell you why they could drastically evolve Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave. Remember to subscribe if you're new. But before we get this party started, what if you could win up to £500,000 just by picking one team to win each week in the Premier League? Get the William Hill app to enter their ultimate free-to-play prediction game, Final One Standing. But anyway, let's get this party started. So starting with tactics and formation, Arteta will probably continue with his 4-3-3 shape. That of course transitions to a 3-2-5 structure, with the 2-8s moving to attacking midfield, the left fullback inverting and Arsenal creating a back three with Ben White or Jurrien Timber tucking in. Of course Arsenal have created other formations and structures recently, especially with the likes of David Raya joining the back three. This allows the right back to play a little bit higher up the pitch, adding another attacker to break down the opposition. But in terms of Arsenal as well, they're very good defensively. Under Arteta, they press in a 4-4-2 diamond, with Ødegaard joining the striker, one of the centre mids playing high, the two wingers dropping back and playing a little bit more narrow, creating a really good pressing structure to force their opponents long to win the ball back. Of course, if their opponents do get back into midfield, Arsenal react very well, drop into a 4-4-2 structure that's compact, it's very difficult to play through. Arsenal off the ball are really good for me. But in terms of today, we're going to kind of focus on this kind of 4-3-3 structure with a number 9, with kind of 2 3-8s, with 2 wingers, and of course a back 5 consisting of a defensive midfielder and 2 fullbacks. Arsenal have looked very, very good under Arteta, and I think this is another season where we'll see evolution due to the signings that Arsenal are bringing in. In terms of the first signing we're going to talk about today, that of course is in goal. Arteta for me has been pretty decent with his goalkeepers. Started with Emi Martinez, moved to Ramsey, went to David Raya, and now we're seeing Kepa joining the football club. We've got to remember that Kepa was a world record transfer fee goalkeeper when he moved from Bilbao to Chelsea, and I still think he's got a lot of quality. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 for Arsenal, but he is a fantastic number 2 who can come in cup games and play between the sticks. When we look at his statistics over the last 4 seasons, they're very good. He's saved his team around 10 goals due to post-shot expected goals models, which obviously evaluates how good shots are, should the keeper be saving or not. So that's a very big positive to start there. But he's also maintained a 74% save percentage, also good statistics. But more importantly for Arsenal, when they do lose possession of the football and teams try and play over the top, play super direct, Arsenal need a goalkeeper that flies off the line like we see David Raya do week in, week out. Kepa is a keeper that could do that. I thought he was fantastic at Bournemouth last season and probably deserved another shot as Chelsea keeper. But Chelsea are pretty crazy and they sold him for not enough cash in my eyes. I think Arsenal got a great deal. But I do think, of course, next season, David Raya will continue between the sticks. Not only that quality in possession we mentioned before, but also his long-range passing, which I believe could be even more of a weapon this season. But in terms of the back four, Arsenal very stacked in those areas now when we consider their squad. With the likes of Jurrien Timber being that kind of defensive right back. Obviously with William Saliba as the starting centre-back. Christian Mosquera has obviously sneaked into the team already, but we'll keep him in that position. And then the likes of Calafiori, he's back up left back, but also can play left-sided centre-back as well from Gabriel. You look at Arsenal are pretty stacked in these positions now. And I quite like what they've done in terms of the profile they've signed. Christian Mosquera is a player that's joined the football club this summer, so let's focus on him for a little bit. Of course, with Arsenal, what we'll tend to see is Lewis Skelly invert into that central position. In build-up, provide an extra body in midfield. Gabriel pull a little bit wider. The centre-back being in the middle. And obviously the right full-back kind of tucking in. Arsenal setting up with a kind of 3-2-5 structure with width coming from both wingers high up the pitch. But in terms of Mosquera, I really like him because he's very good defensively. 1v1, I think there isn't many young centre-backs that are better than him in those situations. Standing at 6 foot tall, he's got the power and the aggression in those areas, but also he's quite dynamic. His agility is good. His ability 1v1 is sensational. And if you don't believe me waxing lyrical about him, the statistics paint a great picture. So we take a look at his defensive duels won. On Y-Scout, he's won around 72.7%. That is an elite level. But also, he's won 74.4% of the tackles he's had versus versus dribblers. And of course, stats are good. Me waxing lyrical about a player is good, but let's take a look at Mosquera in action. It'll give you a better picture against Vinicius Jr. So we pick up the play in probably the worst position in European football. Kylian Mbappe feeding Vinicius Jr. to create a 1v1 on you. I feel for Mosquera in this situation, but the way that he defends this is brilliant, and there's big potential for him to be a world-class defender. And I think similar to the likes of William Saliba, he's quite a good cover defender. He waits for the opponent to kind of make the decision and then reacts, and we see that here. Not only does Mosquera get himself orientated well, he's showing Vinicius Jr. down the line, away from that kind of dangerous area of him cutting in onto his right foot. But in terms of when he gets to the box, I like how he's engaged. He's not stood up right. He's nice in a kind of dynamic position. He's ready to go either way, but still showing Vinicius Jr. down the line. As he gets near the penalty area, Vinicius is throwing in some feints. He's trying to trick Mosquera to diving in to make a tackle, but Mosquera stands off. He's in a really good dynamic position, nice and low, but he's still showing him down the line. His teammates blocking off that central space, so Vinicius Jr. decides he's going to beat him for pace on the outside. Mosquera is definitely not a slouch, a pacey footballer that can keep up with some of the best wingers in the world. We see Vinicius go on the outside, and Mosquera win a brilliant tackle on the byline. But I think one of the big reasons why Arsenal have signed Mosquera is not just his defensive ability, but I like this possession play here. So number one, he's shut down one of the best wingers on the planet. But then he spots the space, moves into a position to receive a pass from his teammate, gets his head up and fires it into the centre forward. So not only has he dealt with Vinicius Jr., he's now in the possession play. He plays forward, makes another forward run, receives the ball back and shuttles it back inside. I think this is something that the likes of Arteta and the Arsenal technical staff will be looking at. Defenders that are brilliant 1v1, but also pretty decent on the ball. If we look at his possession stats, they're not great, but Valencia were awful last season. But I think with some of Arteta's coaching, those numbers will shoot up. But I think one area that Mosquera definitely needs to work on is ability in the air. For Arsenal, of course, Gabriel is the main stopper defender. You know, Saliba sits off a little bit. He plays a more cover role in the back four, which would be good for Mosquera because that means that he doesn't have to deal with the long balls, you know, weakness in his game. When we look at the statistics, he's won around 43.5% of his aerial duels in La Liga last season. That ranks him in the bottom sort of 6% of centre-backs. So it's definitely an area that he needs to work on. Of course, at the start, could play as more of a cover defender, but there will be a time when centre forwards start to pull on him, and teams, as the Premier League is quite good with their analytics, start to focus hitting long balls onto Mosquera's side. So at the start of his career at Arsenal, I think, you know, what could be quite good for him potentially is to play at right fullback. I think that would be good for his skill set. We mentioned previously, he was very good for Valencia in that game. He actually played as a right centre-back in a back three, and he's done that quite frequently for Valencia. And obviously Arsenal's shape, when they build, does kind of change to a back three, so he's more than capable of playing on the outside. Again, this would limit the amount of long balls that he would have to deal with, because usually they're going to be hit through the middle. But I do think he's a brilliant 1v1 defender that could do a good job for Arteta's side this season. What if you could win up to £500,000 just by picking one team to win in the Premier League each week? Get the William Hill app to enter the ultimate free-to-play prediction game, Final One Standing. All you have to do is pick one team to win and you're through to the next round. If they fail to win, you're eliminated. Keep picking winners until you are the final one standing to win the jackpot. The catch is you can only pick a team once, so it's important to use your brain when choosing the right team for the right game week. With Arsenal's new signings, as much as I think they'll beat Manchester United, I know they'll beat Leeds in game week 2. With Daniel Farke's basketball style, Viktor Gyokeres will tear Leeds apart, so maybe save your Arsenal pick for that fixture. It's free, it's 500 grand, it's final one standing, so if you think you've got what it takes, then click the link below and make your play. You do have to be over the age of 18 and based in the UK and Ireland. Please remember to gamble responsibly and terms and conditions do apply. So now let's move into midfield. If Kepa's a good backup and Mosquera's maybe one for the future, got a player that's going to instantly slot into Arteta's side. That, of course, is Zubimendi. How I see this kind of happening in terms of first choice 11s, Moreno's probably going to be on the bench, Declan Rice into left central midfield, and Zubimendi in this pivot position. And when we look at Zubimendi's profile, he's more well-rounded than any of Arsenal's options from last season. He's a better defender than Jorginho, and better at the base than Declan Rice. I like his ability to switch the play, find passes into the number 9, but also recycle possession and keep the ball moving. He's a really good pivot point. I think defensively he's good in pressing situations as well. In the Europa League was fantastic against Manchester United in terms of squeezing and overloading certain sides to allow Real Sociedad to press. In terms of the tactical setup as well, Arsenal have signed a lot of players from Sociedad in recent years under Arteta. They basically built last season in a 4-1-4-1 structure. And we could see that with Arsenal this season, Zubimendi being a sole pivot, a little bit more width kept from fullback, basically stretching out the opposition's shape, so maybe they'll have to jump in more of a 4-4-2 structure, which could create more space for Declan Rice and Martin Ødegaard in between the lines. Could be a good tactical option. But in terms of his possession play, as I mentioned previously, I really like his ability to switch the play. And that's something that maybe Arsenal didn't have at defensive midfield when Jorginho wasn't playing there. Getting the likes of Martinelli and Saka, the two wingers on the ball. We've got a great clip of that when he was playing for Sociedad. As we mentioned previously, Sociedad build in a kind of 4-1-4-1 structure. Of course, they love to throw their 8s forward. And Zubimendi being capable of playing as a sole holder is good for Arsenal, because it means they could potentially throw more bodies forward. What I like about Zubimendi in this position, he buzzes around. He looks to get himself on the ball. From this position, he opens himself up well. He's under pressure, so this is a good pass. In terms of the execution, it's fantastic, and gets the far side winger on the ball. Again, Zubimendi buzzing around, getting on the ball. Two things to take away from this. Number one, Sociedad's midfielders are very comfortable with Zubimendi being the sole holder. They've pushed up high. This could be something that Declan Rice and Martin Ødegaard do. Having a sole pivot instead of having a double base will allow Arsenal potentially to attack down the flanks more and create overlaps from their fullbacks. The second thing to notice, even under pressure, Zubimendi executes his pass really well. Hits it on a sixpence, something that Arsenal need. Switching the ball from the left-hand side after overloading that section to creating that spare man on the far side. Think Saka 1v1. But I think one of the benefits of this kind of new structure and shape in possession not only is getting the likes of Ødegaard and Declan Rice higher up the pitch, but also that players will start having to jump to press Zubimendi. And if that's on the right-hand side of the pitch, let's say the 8 jumps from the opposition, let's drop the wingers a little bit deeper in this tactical situation, and Zubimendi either kind of, rolls himself and plays forward, or alternatively, he's dropping the ball round, he gets himself free, and then can find Ødegaard. You've got a situation where now Ødegaard is free in attacking midfield to find that pass behind the defence. If we look at Martin Ødegaard's shot creating actions, they dropped 25% last season versus the 23-24 season. Ødegaard needs to be more in the final third, needs to be more free in the final third, and I believe that Zubimendi, being a good ball player and a good progressor, but also a good defender, alleviates a lot of the stress on Ødegaard. Too many times I thought over the last season and a half, following that kind of, the 15-goal non-penalty goal season, Ødegaard's been too involved in the build-up. What this tends to mean for him is instead of him playing passes in the final third, which is kind of exactly where you want Ødegaard to play passes from, you're getting him basically passing from a deeper area, him being less potent in the final third. And again, when you think about the likes of Ben White being in there, it could create situations where Arsenal can attack with more players, and having Zubimendi as that sole holder in those defensive midfield positions means that he can deal with the build-up, Ødegaard can play higher, Arsenal can be more free in the final third. But also with Zubimendi, not only is it on the ball, but without the ball, he's a very diligent defender. He's, testament to his structure and ability in the kind of 4-4-2 structure. He's a very good defender. It's not like Jorginho, where Arsenal had a bit of a problem when they lost the ball with Jorginho, but he was very good in possession. It's a bit of a mix of both, where Zubimendi is kind of a better defender than Jorginho, and also a better passer from that 6th position than Declan Rice. But I think the big thing with Zubimendi is he needs a little bit of time to adapt to the Premier League, but when he does, he'll be a very good player for Arsenal. And before we move on to the attacking side, let's just talk about Christian Norgard quickly. Again, signed as a bit of a backup defensive midfielder. I think for Christian Norgard, this is the perfect time in his career to move to a big club. What he'll provide for Arsenal is a real ball-winning mentality. His tackles versus dribblers was in the top 15%. He was in the top 10% for aerial duels won, and in the top 7% for blocked shots. He's a player that Arsenal either could bring on at the end of the game to either play as a third centre-back or play as a bit of a anchorman in midfield to really hold his position. Or alternatively, let's say if Zubimendi is playing and Arsenal want to play kind of more defensive at the end of games, you get Christian Norgard kind of pressing high maybe in a 4-3-3 structure, knowing he's going to win the ball back. I think for £10 million, Christian Norgard is a great addition, considering his wages are quite cheap and potentially could chip in with the goals. Really good from set pieces. Was directly involved in 9 goals last season. So either him playing high, a little bit like a Mikel Moreno, getting into the penalty area when the ball's wide, or alternatively, at the base of midfield to be that aggressive player that can truly bully the opposition's number 10. But now let's move on to one of the worst signings in Arsenal's recent history. That is Nordi Madueke, a player that costs £50 million from one of their big rivals in Chelsea that's just going to be the backup for Bukayo Saka. I've taken a bit of time to process this transfer and understand what Arteta wants. So in terms of what Nordi Madueke will instantly bring Arsenal, it is depth. It's depth all across the forward line. And yes, it is a little bit expensive, but I actually quite like this signing the more I think about it. First, Madueke doesn't have much experience, and I think that is a good thing. There's a lot of capacity for him to learn and improve under Arteta, one of the best coaches in the world at dealing with wide players. He's only played 7,707 professional minutes. That is low. That is less than Jude Bellingham at 18 or Bukayo Saka at 19. Already he's playing at a pretty decent Premier League level. He was the third top scorer in the Premier League under Enzo Maresca last year. And despite the limited minutes, his underlying numbers are very good. He's one of only 10 left-footed wingers in Europe's top 5 leagues to have over 0.3 XG, 0.3 XA, and over 3.2 dribbles per game. People in that list are pretty good. I don't think you can deny that. So in terms of tactics, of course, he's just going to be Saka's backup, and Ethan Nwaneri, who's just signed a new 5-year deal, is going to sit in the reserves. I see this differently. I think Arteta signed Madueke to play on the left wing. Madueke is a player, of course, that's predominantly played on the right-hand side in his career so far. But considering his ability on that left-hand side to be a technical dribbler that can create chances for his teammates by having width and putting low crosses into the box, I actually think that's quite perfect for Arsenal. One of the big things I feel like Arsenal have lacked since Granit Xhaka has left the football club is a player that on the left-hand side of the pitch that can cross with his right foot. When you think Declan Rice is right-footed, you think that the fullback has basically played inside, either Zinchenko or Lewis Skelly, or alternatively your wingers in Martinelli and Trossard are right-footed and generally want to cut inside. Madueke is a natural winger. Think about Sterling when Arteta was at Manchester City at his best season in terms of goals and assists when Arteta was coaching him and he played mainly on the right hand side. This will allow him to create more opportunities, and considering that Arsenal have bought a new number 9, that could be a very, very good thing for the football club. So in terms of that balance, I've got 2 really good examples against Chelsea, with Granit Xhaka operating as the nominal winger with his left foot. So as Arsenal build through Zinchenko to Jesus, they're in between the lines, they're in a dangerous position. But as the ball is shipped out wide to Granit Xhaka, what you probably expect Trossard or Martinelli to do in this situation is drive inside. But Xhaka, being left-footed, instantly opens himself up and cracks a low pass to the edge of the box. Chelsea's midfield is dropping, they're trying to get back into the box to protect that dangerous area, which leaves massive space for Ødegaard to sweep the ball home. That's exactly what I mean. Being left-footed on the left-hand side means that you can cross early to the edge of the box. Well, let's take his other assist. Again, a nice bit of interplay between himself and the wingers around him. Not only working the ball wide, but then making the underlap. Getting himself into, again, a wide left position as Arsenal rotate the possession. The ball's worked out wide, gets head up, and once again, early, low cross into the box for Ødegaard to fire the ball home. I really believe a lot of Ødegaard's good work and good finishing came from Granit Xhaka and his left foot on that side. So let's take a look at Madueke playing as a left winger for England under-21s against France. What you notice about Nordi on this side, I feel like he plays a little bit more natural. Constantly on the right, it's the same thing. Oh, I'm going to cut inside, I'm going to try and get a shot away. But I feel his game is a lot more developed on the left wing, which is interesting because he's not really played that much there in his professional career so far. But as England move the ball forward, Madueke makes a good run in behind the defence. Again, he's still going to do that on the left wing. He's going to threaten in behind, something really important for Arsenal's wingers. He makes the first run, then gets himself back onside, providing a wide option for the play. The ball's shipped out wide, he takes no touches, instantly gets the ball into the box. There's a really good finish from Curtis Jones. But that play, natural left foot, means he can do that. Instead of taking a touch into the penalty area, instantly firing it across, which gives the centre forward a real good opportunity to find the back of the net. Something that could happen with Madueke and Viktor Gyokeres. But I do think Arsenal's system is built for a winger in 1v1 situations, which I think Madueke on the left-hand side will do really well. But also in terms of fluidity, think PSG in the Champions League. There was so much interchange between their wingers, their midfielders and their defenders. The fluidity was massive. So at times we could potentially see Bukayo Saka on that natural left wing. Again, we've seen him there previously for Arsenal, much better on the right, but he can also do the similar job. You know, hitting the byline and getting crosses into the box for a number 9. Similar to Madueke, we know that he's going to be on the right-hand side, he's going to cut in and try and get shots on goal. But Arteta giving these wingers fluidity to switch wings is going to cause so many problems for the opposition defenders. They're going to be dealing with one player, then they're going to have to deal with another player for the next 10 minutes within a game. That is very, very difficult. As much as Madueke was far too expensive for 50 million quid and you're paying Chelsea a lot of money, you don't really want to strengthen him in the market, I actually like the signing, and I do think by the end of the season, Madueke will be Arsenal's starting left winger. The natural side, natural position, allow him to get crosses into the box for Arsenal's number 9, Viktor Gyokeres. So it's probably about time to talk about Viktor Gyokeres coming into Arsenal to play that centre-forward position. The most dominant goal scorer in Europe, really knows how to put the ball in the back of the net. And just to start on that little bit about Madueke combining with someone like Viktor Gyokeres, Gyokeres is a player that isn't great with his head. He's only scored 2 goals in Portugal with his head. But where Viktor Gyokeres is very, very good is if he can make a run and drop off the line and receive a cutback. Something that worked very well with a left footer on the right-hand side. Gyokeres combining in that style. But I think, of course, the biggest things for Arsenal, Viktor Gyokeres, they're going to have a true number 9 in the penalty area. Be it Martin Odegaard finding those passes to get Gyokeres in behind in the channel. He's very good in this right channel. Instantly finishes with his right foot. How many times we see him finish high and right-hand side. That's definitely a part of his game. But also from the likes of Bukayo Saka, also similar type of positions. Him finding those through balls, or alternatively Saka dribbling and once again getting low crosses into the box. Viktor Gyokeres is perfect for Arsenal. But touching back on the point of fluidity, Gyokeres in fact will add more fluidity to Arsenal's forward line. Yes, he loves running the 2 channels, but after he's made that first move and spanning behind and maybe one of his teammates has decided to recycle possession, he does like to pull wide. What this could mean for someone like Saka is actually he takes up the number 9 position. We all know how good he is at getting himself turned and getting shots away in the penalty area. I think he could score even more goals in that zone. But with Gyokeres operating from the wide area, he does operate like a winger. He loves driving to the byline and either, cutting back inside himself and firing high shots past the keeper, or alternatively looking for cutbacks. It's a real big part of his game. In fact, in Europe's top 7 leagues, Gyokeres created more chances last season than any other striker. He isn't just a channel runner, he isn't just a target, he's a player that can operate in the wide areas and really turn people over. But I think the biggest thing that Gyokeres is going to do for Arsenal, let's forget about the wing play, the fluidity, his job as a number 9. Not only is he really good at coming off the line and receiving into feet and quickly moving the ball on, which I think is needed. Forget the Harry Kane turn and play a long pass. This is a quick ball into his feet, a little bit of a layoff, and then go and attack that back line. Something that Arsenal have not had. What this should mean consequently, in fact, is Gyokeres pulls the defensive line even deeper with his movement, which either will open up more space in defensive midfield for the 2 6s to play. That, of course, is Lewis Skelly and Zubimendi. Or alternatively, it will open up more space for both Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard to operate in. The ability of a 9 to kind of pull the opposition's defensive line will be seen in these kind of narrow 4 players for Arsenal. More time on possession, more ability to create even more space, maybe by drawing in their 8 to press. The overload really comes there. Everything that Gyokeres does off the ball is very, very good. And it's a little bit different than what we've seen with the likes of Kai Havertz, or alternatively with Gabriel Jesus. Players that like to kind of drop off the line, which sometimes means the opposition can step up and close the space down for Arsenal. Gyokeres wants to go the other way, and that's a really big thing that I think will improve the Gunners in the final third. So here's 2 examples of showing the difference between Arsenal's options at 9 and what Viktor Gyokeres will bring. So we pick up the play against Aston Villa with David Raya rolling the ball out into attacking midfield. We can see Gabriel Jesus highlighted as the 9. Arsenal are pressed in that area. Of course, the ball is shipped inside to Kai Havertz. But instead of threatening the opposition's backline now, with big space in between the lines, Gabriel Jesus looks for the ball into feet and ships it wide before then being a little bit behind the play and eventually getting the ball on the edge of the box for a shot that's well saved by Emi Martinez. So that's an example. Instead of penetrating the back line, you're looking into feet, you're working the ball wide, and then you're kind of behind the play. Versus this against Manchester City in the Champions League. Sporting building, drawing the City press in, going over the press and finding Quenda out wide. Now we've got Trincao in space, in between a pocket of Manchester City's midfield and their attack. but just look what Viktor Gyokeres is doing. He's not waiting to receive into feet. He's not waiting to get into the play and combine and then wait on the edge of the box. He's going to goal. And as soon as Quenda cuts inside, he is off, in behind the defence, racing through on goal and firing the ball past Ederson. That difference in centre-forward play is going to be massive for Arsenal. And for me, it's a big reason why they win the league. Not only is Gyokeres pulling the defensive line now deeper, but it's creating more space for the 6s, more space for the 10s, but also you've got a goal scorer that can make runs in behind the defence that likes to attack versus link the play. Something that I love about Viktor Gyokeres. But anyway, guys, get into the comments below. What have you made of Arsenal signings this summer, and how do you think they'll line up? 4-4-2, a 3-5-2, Kai Havertz and Viktor Gyokeres. It could happen. Subscribe if you do. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.